What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense actors sits down with late-night television's quickest wit and things go completely off the rails? Tonight, we're diving into the moment that had everyone buzzing when Mark Wahlberg and Stephen Colbert's interview unraveled so fast that cameras kept rolling as the Transformers star stormed right off the set. This wasn't your standard celebrity promo gone wrong. This turned into a full-on confrontation that neither the host nor the guest saw coming. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below about the most awkward interview you've ever seen, because what you're about to hear might top your list. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert had been running smoothly that night. Colbert, famous for his razor-sharp humor and his skill at making even the most closed-off celebrities open up, was getting ready for what seemed like a routine chat. Mark Wahlberg was booked to promote his latest action thriller, and the producers expected the usual back and forth about stunts, Boston roots, maybe even some light-hearted jokes about his music career from the early days. But what they got instead was pure unscripted television gold. Wahlberg walked on stage with his usual confident swagger, waving to the audience before settling into the guest chair. The crowd's energy was high, and Colbert greeted him with his trademark smile. "Mark Wahlberg, everyone," Colbert announced as the applause faded. "Thanks for being here." "Mark, I've got to say, watching your new film, I kept thinking about how you've really mastered the art of looking dead serious while explosions go off all around you." Wahlberg chuckled, shifting in his seat. "Well, Stephen, when you've been doing this as long as I have, you learn sometimes the best acting happens when you're not really acting at all." "Interesting thought," Colbert said, leaning forward a bit. "Speaking of not really acting, I've been wondering about something. You've built this amazing career playing tough guys, but do you ever worry about the message that sends, especially to younger viewers?" The question sounded harmless enough, but something in Colbert's tone hinted he was digging deeper than a normal promo interview would go. Wahlberg's expression tightened just slightly, the kind of shift fans of his films would recognize. "What kind of message do you think I'm sending?" Wahlberg asked, his Boston accent suddenly sharper, as it often was when he got defensive. "Well," Colbert continued, clearly comfortable pushing this line, "you've built a career out of playing characters who solve problems with violence, who use intimidation or aggression to get results. Don't you think that kind of glorifies a type of masculinity we should maybe be moving past?" The audience grew quiet, realizing this wasn't going to be the light chat they were expecting. Wahlberg's jaw clenched and he leaned back, studying Colbert with new focus. "You know what, Stephen?" Wahlberg said, his voice edged. "I think you're mixing up entertainment with reality. When I was growing up in Dorchester, the real tough guys weren't in movies about it. They were living it every day." Colbert raised his eyebrows, realizing he'd hit a nerve. "But that's the point, Mark. You did live it, and then you turned that into a very profitable brand. Doesn't it feel like exploiting the same community you came from?" The word hung in the air like a challenge. Wahlberg gripped the armrest tighter now. His breathing slowed, the way it often did in his films before his character lost control. "Exploitation?" Wahlberg repeated, his voice lower now. "Stephen, with all due respect, and I mean that, you grew up comfortable. You had good schools, you had chances given to you. Maybe you don't understand what it's like to really have to fight to get out when the odds are stacked against you." Colbert's smile stayed in place, but his eyes hardened. "You're right, Mark. I did have privileges. But that's exactly why I can look at this clearly. When someone from your background makes millions playing men who use violence to fix problems and then sells that to kids who are still stuck in those same realities, you don't see the contradiction?" "The contradiction?" Wahlberg's voice rose now, though he tried to keep his calm. "The contradiction is sitting here being lectured about violence by someone who's never thrown a punch in his life." The tension in the studio was thick. Audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while the cameras grabbed angles they never thought they'd need. Colbert, however, looked like he was thriving in the tension. "Maybe that's the problem, Mark," Colbert said coolly. "Maybe the fact that you did have to fight, that you did have to punch. That's why you shouldn't be the one deciding the messages we send about conflict." Wahlberg's face flushed red, and for a second it looked like he might leap from his chair. Instead, he pointed a finger at Colbert, his voice rough but measured. "Don't you sit there in your fancy suit, in your safe little bubble, and tell me what I should do with my life story. You have no idea what it's like to come from where I came from. I'm not talking about your life, Colbert replied firmly, his composure starting to show cracks. I'm talking about the movies you choose to make, the image you choose to sell. There's a difference between surviving your past and making money from it. Profiting? Wahlberg laughed, but it was harsh and bitter. You think this is about profit? Every movie I make, every role, I'm thinking about kids like I was. Kids who need proof you can get out, that you can change your life. By showing them the way to solve problems is to hit first and think later. Colbert countered. Because that's what your characters do, Mark. Over and over again. That was it. Wahlberg shot up, his chair sliding back with force. The crowd gasped loudly, unsure if this was staged or real. Colbert stayed seated but straightened his posture, ready for whatever was coming. You want to know what my characters do? Wahlberg shouted, his voice booming without a mic. They protect people. They stand for what's right. They don't sit behind desks making smart comments about things they don't know. Oh, so now I don't understand comedy. Colbert stood too, meeting Wahlberg's intensity. Because last I checked, that's my job. Just like making violent movies is yours. There's nothing funny about this, Wahlberg said. His voice suddenly low, almost a whisper, but more threatening than his shouting had been. Nothing funny about being scared to walk home as a kid. Nothing funny about watching friends get locked up, killed, or strung out. And there's definitely nothing funny about some privileged comic using that pain for a punchline. That landed hard. Colbert's face drained of color. For the first time, he looked rattled. I never said it was funny, Mark. I'm questioning the responsibility of turning trauma into entertainment. Responsibility? Wahlberg repeated, incredulous. How about actually doing something instead of just talking? How about putting your money where your mouth is instead of running it? What do you think I should do? Colbert asked, his own voice rising. I'm saying before you criticize how I handle success, look at how you handle yours, Wahlberg shot back. When's the last time you set foot in Dorchester, Stephen? When's the last time you spoke to the kids you claim to care about? That's not the point, Colbert pushed. That's exactly the point, Wahlberg interrupted, stepping closer to the desk. You sit up here in your tower making jokes about politicians and celebrities, cashing your check, going home to your perfect house in your perfect neighborhood. But you want to preach to me about responsibility? The audience was dead silent. Producers were waving desperately from the wings, but neither man looked away from the other. You know what? Colbert said coldly. You're right. I am privileged, but at least I'm not pretending violent movies are some kind of service. Public service? Wahlberg's eyes blazed. You think I make films to pat myself on the back? You think it's just for money? Yes, Colbert answered bluntly. And you've convinced yourself it's bigger than that. Wahlberg paused, breathing heavy, then gave a cold, unsettling smile. You're right about one thing. I did build a brand, and part of that brand is knowing when I'm sitting across from someone who doesn't respect me and doesn't deserve my time. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here tonight to talk about a film. A film with action, sure, but at its heart about people who care enough to fight for something. Instead, I got ambushed by someone who thinks he knows me better than I know myself. Mark, that's not... Colbert tried to cut in. Don't, Wahlberg said sharply, raising his hand. You had your chance at a conversation. Instead, you wanted an interrogation. He grabbed his jacket from his chair. You want the real difference between us? When I fought as a kid, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because sometimes that's the only way to protect something important. Your fight tonight, it's not protecting anything. It's just ego. The studio was frozen. Colbert stood at his desk, his face mixed with anger and maybe regret. Mark, we can talk this out like adults. Adults? Wahlberg shot back, slipping on his jacket. Adults don't invite guests just to tear them down. That's what bullies do. And I stopped wasting time on bullies a long time ago. He headed for the exit. So you're just going to walk away? Colbert called after him. That's your idea of conflict resolution? Wahlberg stopped at the edge of the stage, turning with that same cold grin. No, Stephen. Walking away is how you handle time wasters. People who confuse cynicism